very pleased to say that GB News today went out on a raid. The Home Office have warned they intend to step up efforts to pursue crime gangs using high street businesses as fronts for their criminality. We were told of an explosion in the number of barber shops. Yes, we were told by you that that was the case, that are now being exploited by criminals to launder money and employ illegal immigrants. Today, GB News was given exclusive access on a raid in Oxford where the Minister for Illegal Immigration, Michael Tomlinson, joined enforcement officers targeting a barber shop suspected of employing foreign nationals illegally. Our Home and Security Editor, Mark White, reports.
Heading into this suburb of Oxford, these immigration enforcement officers are en route to raid a local barber shop. It's suspected of employing illegal immigrants. Part of a growing phenomenon where these high street businesses are being increasingly exploited as fronts for criminality. These officers are looking for an Albanian asylum seeker who's absconded and believed to be working here. While there's no trace of him, they have detained this Colombian man, another asylum seeker working here in breach of employment laws. As officers continue to search this business, the Albanian owner arrived. He now faces the prospect of a much higher fine, with tougher penalties for businesses introduced this week of up to £45,000 for each immigrant caught working illegally.
Immigration enforcement raids are up by nearly 70% last year. That's a huge increase. And talking to the illegal enforcement team here, they've been ramping up in the West Midlands as well. You can really sense it. You can sense the work they're doing, and that work is going to continue.
Across the country, the number of barber shops has exploded, almost 18,000 in total, up 50% in just a few years. While most are perfectly legitimate and a valuable addition to the high street, sources have told us that increasing numbers of barber shops are fronts for criminality. Billions of pounds from the proceeds of crime are laundered through these businesses, which don't just employ illegal immigrants, but are often involved in modern slavery, coercing and threatening victims of human trafficking to work for little to nothing.
There is broader organised crime behind this. These sorts of premises do not pop up overnight without money behind them. And it's really important that we work with agencies such as National Crime Agencies, such as policing, such as HMRC and other government departments to ensure that the weight of all the government's powers is brought to bear on those who seek to exploit vulnerable individuals.
Nail bars and car washes have long been associated with criminal gangs, often employing and exploiting illegal immigrants. But sources say barber shops are rapidly overtaking them as a front for criminality. The authorities are keen to reiterate that the majority of barbers are legitimate and law-abiding, but they say they won't hesitate to go after those they suspect of breaking the law. Mark White, GB News.
Well, great package there from Mark White, great exclusive for GB News. And I have to say, this is what I've been suspecting and saying for the last 2 years. The whole thing, folks, is a racket. If you think I'm wrong on that, then please send me farage@gbnews.com and tell me why I am wrong. It is a racket on a huge scale. And if immigration services are going to step up raids, good, because they will find many, many more people who've come into Britain illegally, working in these shops, working in businesses. They will find money laundering, they will find drugs, and much else. Of that, I'm absolutely sure. As Mark said, most of them are thoroughly respectable, but what a good front and a good cover a cash business like that makes. Well, I'm very pleased to be joined down the line by Kevin Saunders, former Chief Immigration Officer in Calais for UK Border Force. Kevin, when you saw that little package from Oxford, they'd suspected an Albanian was working illegally. Actually, it was a Colombian. Did any of that surprise you at all?
Good evening, Nigel. No, not in the slightest. It's what I've been saying for years. People are coming to the UK because they want to work in the unregulated economy, because it's easy. And that's exactly what your item has shown. The fact that he was a Colombian is neither here nor there. He could have been any nationality that you want to think. He just wanted to work illegally. And you're spot on. The barber business is now a growth industry. It was car washes. And we've got one not very far from where I live. That I'm quite sure is being run by illegal immigrants, and nail bars. So it's just another example of illegal working in the UK.
It seems that the size of our illegal economy is actually quite a lot bigger than many of our counterparts across the English Channel. Is this a failure of us as a country to have allowed this to happen on this scale?
Well, yeah, you're right. We don't have that many employment checks. I mean, if you were working in France, for example, or Germany, you would need to produce your ID card. Of course, we don't have ID cards, and people are dead against ID cards. So, yes, it is very easy to work in the black economy in the UK, and it's our own fault. We could clamp down on it. We've chosen not to.
And I wonder what will happen to that barber shop in Oxford. I wonder what the penalty will be. It won't be anything too stiff, will it?
Cool, not half. He could now be fined up to £45,000 for taking that person, because the penalties have just gone up. I think it was this week that the penalties went up. But it could cost him a lot of money. It could, in fact, put him out of business.
Yeah, well, unless he, of course, offers to pay the fine in cash, which may answer a few questions and suspicions that we've got. No, you're right. They have said a massive increase in these fines. Well, let's hope they enforce them. And Kevin, just very quickly, while I've got you, January saw a slight increase in the number of people crossing the channel from January last year. February's been windy, but numbers are down. There's no sign of this stopping at all, is there?
No, unfortunately, there isn't. We need to do more. There's got to be a lot more. I did see an idea which I thought might have some good idea with mooring buoys just off the coast in Calais to stop the people getting onto the boats. And I thought that might actually be a practical idea. Yeah,
so did I. And then I thought, well, at low tide, when, the water's 3.5 feet deep, those buoys might be quite good. But at high tide, when it's 25 feet deep, you may well find they tip boats over and drown people. That, I think, Kevin, is the problem. But like you, let's think about everything. Yeah. Thank you for joining us again on the programme. I'm joined by Steve Chalke, former United Nations Special Advisor on Human Trafficking. Steve, this was GB News going out on a raid. It was a shop in Oxford. They found there was a Colombian there who'd illegally entered the country working. But what's interesting is we have this very big illegal economy, and we understand that people come into Britain illegally, disappear, work in that economy. But it's also said that, and whether this is true or not, I don't know, it's also said there are quite a lot of people coming into Britain and actually working under coercive conditions that might not be too far away from slavery. Should I be sceptical about that, or do you think that is going on as well?
No, I'm sure that's going on, Nigel, as well. In fact, you probably know this, just at the beginning of this week, the Centre for Social Justice and a charity called Truth and Mercy together produced a report, and it said that the people most likely to be coerced into illegal working in this country, a form of modern slavery, as they called it, are 14 to 18-year-old boys on our council estates, pushed and coerced into becoming mules, carrying drugs for gangs, drug gangs. So, huge report from the Centre for Social Justice there, and that ties right into what I see happening in the youth work that we're responsible for around the country. But as you know, I also served as special advisor to the United Nations around human trafficking and communities for 8 years. And the reality is traffickers are always ahead of us in every way. We have to constantly battle with this crime. It keeps on reinventing itself. A people trafficker never gets out of bed to traffic people. They get out of bed to make money. They traffic guns, they traffic drugs, they traffic people. They do anything they can to make cash. They don't care about anybody's life, anyone's possessions. So we've got to keep on top of this all of the time.
But it's not just trafficking in from overseas. What you're saying is people already living here on council estates that can finish up falling into this modern slavery trap.
Yes, so what happens all of the time is this. A child is excluded from school. I'm talking about people that know this has happened to. A child is excluded from school, and that can happen for all sorts of reasons, not just to do with their poor behaviour. Let me tell you a story about a boy that I know. He ended up outside of school. He wasn't actually excluded. He ended up outside of school because his father beat him up. He went into school the next morning. He had bruises on his face. The school have to report that through, it's a safeguarding issue, and have to report it to the local authority. The local authority had to take action. The police went to his home, saw that the mother was also beaten up, removed the boy from the house. Social services then, after a few days, returned the boy to the house where he was beaten up again for grassing on his father. This time he didn't go to school because he knew that he'd be reported and the same circle would repeat itself. So he hung about on the estate. Somebody saw him, and another kid offered to buy him a kebab and a pair of trainers. He was shown love, attention. First time. He was drawn into the gang. He became a mule. He is a modern slave. He is coerced.
Massive problem. Steve Chalke, thank you for your experience on that. Very much indeed.